Hey there, comic book fans. I got another review for you today. And it's another old comic I wanted to take a look at, which is Omega the Unknown #1. Now, this was another one that was a favorite when I was a kid. I actually got it was a 10-issue series from Marvel in 75, 76, I can't even remember which year, but I probably got it somewhere in 77 when the whole thing was finished. Traded it for it in the neighborhoods. This has always kind of been a graphic novel to me, almost. A complete series, though. I consider it an unfinished symphony. By Steve Gerber, Mary Screens are writing it, illustrated by Jim Mooney. Johnny Costanza's the letterer. Petra Goldberg is the colorist, and Marv Wolfman is the editor. But I was never a huge Jim Mooney fan. I think he did some Spider-Man for Marvel, and I know he did some stuff before my time for DC, but this is my favorite Jim Mooney work, if I were to, because, like I said, he usually didn't make much of an impression on me. His work, I always considered his work kind of dull, but I didn't see a ton of it. I think he was doing like fill-in issues and stuff in the late 70s when I was buying Marvel stuff. But he does a really nice job on this, maybe because he's inking himself too. He could have got bad inkers over the years. But, as I said, beautiful splash page there. We end up with, nice little action sequence here. And this is something I remember happening, it used to happen in the 70s a lot more with Iron Fister. So they kind of slow down time. And all of a sudden, before, you just see shots of his hands before he, shot his blast. I guess to up the drama in it. That was a little thing they did. But I reread this whole series, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, and it really holds up well. Except that you'd never get any answers to the mysteries in this book. Here we all of a sudden see Jim Mooney. He gets all moody in this sequence too. I think he was very good at non-superhero stuff, because a lot of these guys in the 70s who had been doing, romance, war, whatever type, when there was a whole variety of books to be done, they were good at that stuff. But when superheroes was all that was left, they weren't necessarily good at superheroes. But you can see he drops in the shadows and the blacks really well here in his storytelling. This is our lead character is Omega the Unknown, and this like 13-year-old boy named James Michael. And it was really strange because they always called him James Michael, who had two first names in comics. But this kid James Michael always had two first names. They were forever calling him two first names, and that was that added to the oddness of this book. This is a very strange, out there book, because it opens, like I said, it opens with this sequence of him fighting these robots, and these robots are pretty neatly designed. Let's go back to the cover for a second. I like how they have one giant Cyclops eye. I don't know what these weird sparkles are they did on the cover, but I think he's nicely designed. I think the robots are nicely designed, and I've heard people over the years say this was some sort of take on Superman or Captain Marvel, but I never quite got that. And also, our lead character, Omega, doesn't talk. That was another weird thing about this book. And, I said, I just love that establishing shot of them in the car. I just think is a great drawing right there. Then we get this really awkward shot of the car coming straight at us. So it was strange. But, and also coming up in this first issue was the moment everybody remembers in Omega, because after we see Jean Michael and his parents, they're taking him to some school because he's a kid genius of some kind. They get into a car accident, and we find out his parents are robots. And this is the moment everybody remembers, as the robot is talking to you. His robot mother is talking to him with her head melting. I think we get some nice little design work here from Jim Mooney with, oh my god, I'm going crazy in my tattered clothes stuff. So then our man ends up in New York. Oh, we switch back to Omega. Once again, this was part of the mystery of the whole book. We didn't know what this Omega the Unknown fighting these robots really meant. And it's interesting too because of the I I guess you'd call it narration. It's kind of a variation of the limited omniscient narration, but it was really more of the kind of the author's voice talking here, and it's kind of like the narrator was pondering the mysteries of Omega the Unknown just as we were. So I always found that interesting about this book too. And like I said, it sounds like the author's voice pondering things too, because that happened a little bit more in the 70s, especially with Steve Gerber, than it ever does now. And know it's strange to compare this to, like, I'm reading Injection right now from Warren Ellis and what's that guy, Declan Shalvey, who, that's a mystery book too. But that, like, modern mystery books are kind of pondering unknowns, and like this book, you're pondering, and the Injection, you're pondering what's not there. And in this book, you're pondering what's there. And the narrator is pondering it with you. So there's a lot of pondering going on. So now we go. So now the book switches to New York City, where he ends up living in Hell's Kitchen, even before Daredevil did. And a doctor wants to take on his case. And he's like a little robot himself. He doesn't quite get emotional like other kids. He's all intellect and not a lot of emotions. And of course, the nurse who is taking care of him is all emotions. So we got that juxtaposition going on there. Like I said, Jim Mooney is good at all this established. This just doctors and nurses, straightforward talking. He does some great storytelling there. You know, little draw in on James Michael. We pop out a little excitement from the doctor. He's very good at this stuff. Like I said, and I think it's all, when you ink yourself, you can do a different type of drawing. So that's what I think Mooney is doing here too. And there we go. Look at these nice, moody drawings right here. I don't remember his stuff looking like this in the Spider-Mans I drew. But then, like I said, that could be down to him inking himself. Nice boardroom shots. Oh, and this is the intro to our next character, who is the roommate of the nurse. Oh, this is, I guess you'd call her the bad girl. She treats James Michael a little more adult than she should. So she's our bad girl, Hell's Kitchen, young, pretty, and having fun girl. Then it just ends with one of these Cyclops robots breaking in, fighting Omega. It's a nice little action sequence. Not the this is more like a dance than that punch right there is not like a Frank Miller punch where you feel your jaw ache, but it exists. Some nice kicks going on. You know, the fight's decently choreographed. Then once again it ends with a mystery with James Michael fights him off with the same Omega blasts that Omega had as he moves him out of there. Next issue, The Incredible Hulk. So like I said, this is some excellent storytelling. I like the overall mystery of it. I like that there's a lot to sort of digest in all this mystery. Like I said, even having all 10 issues at once when I was a kid, I still loved the mystery of it. Even though they never answered any of the... You never got the... I think you got the answers to some of the stuff in some terrible issues of the Defenders. I mean, they wrapped... Another writer, another artist, all wrapped it up. The mystery of Omega and the Defenders. And it was really a letdown. I don't even remember what the answer to the mystery was. I prefer to ponder these ones. Like they even, if I can remember right, probably around issue 5 or 6, they even did a soft reboot of the series, because I guess it wasn't doing well, so it kind of changed direction a little. And I found that fascinating as a kid, that a series would change direction 5 issues in, never having seen anything like that before. But yeah, it holds up well. It's very different than any other Marvel comic you read, because it's just one big mystery that you're pondering. You know, what is the relationship between James Michael and Omega? What is Omega? He never speaks. Is he a superhero? Is he a soldier? Is he a robot? No one knows, and our normal everyday people. The cast of characters ends up being James Michael and his nurse and his nurse's roommate there, with the doctor popping his head in every now and then. If I remember correctly. Listen, I haven't read this. I read this issue. I just reread it, but I haven't read the whole series in 5 or 6 years. Whenever it was, I read it. But look at the storytelling. Once again, we're keeping within the nice grid storytelling, and nothing tells the story well. This issue. Jim Mooney wasn't always above the Sal Buscema line for me, but in this issue he was, and in the rest of the series too. I can't remember if he inks himself for the whole series or not. But it's good stuff. Nice little running stuff here. Nice little coming away from the planet, changing with just color. But yeah, there you go. If you're looking for something a little different, something a little different than your normal stuff, a little different than your normal Bronze Age stuff, check out Omega the Unknown. Oh, one more thing. There was a kind of a redo of this maybe 10 years ago. 4-issue miniseries that I can't remember who did it. I remember, was it Farrell Dalrymple who drew it? 2 indie guys actually did it, and it was kind of, this was one of their favorite series too, and they kind of did a remake of it. That was pretty good. I mean, not as good as the original Omega the Unknown, but they did a nice job of it. So if you get a chance, check out that 4-issue miniseries. I think it's also collected too. But otherwise, this is all in one of the in a trade paperback, or else I'm sure you can track down the original issues for fairly cheap. But give yourself a treat and read some Omega the Unknown.